Hey, what's up, guys? Simon Edwards, aka Pumacom, here with Heat Seeker Sports, and I'm here to give you a breakdown of the Dallas Cowboys versus New York Jets game. It's an afternoon game for week 2 of the NFL season, and this is Gamescript. This is a show where we take a look at maybe an alternative way that the game might play out. That Vegas isn't projecting, and that doesn't really go along with the narratives that have been talked about for the past week leading into the game. So let's dig in and take a look at some of these narratives. And got two interesting teams. You got the Jets, who just lost Aaron Rodgers, their starting quarterback, came to the Jets as their savior. We're expecting big things this season, and the first basically series of game one, week 1, he ended up getting taken out. His Achilles ended up being a full tear, and just devastating loss for the Jets this season. Devastating for any of us drafting Jets in best ball. So you hate to see it, but the Jets ended up pulling through and getting the win against the Bills. Very tough win there. Very nice win. And the Dallas Cowboys were up against New York Giants, and they had a very easy win. The Giants were a complete mess, just sloppy all around, just a complete disaster, that team. And the Cowboys just completely rolled them, scored a bunch of points put up by their defense. It was basically 2 touchdowns in the first couple minutes scored by the defense of Dallas, and the Giants never got into the game, never had a chance, and Dallas's offense was on cruise control for the entire game. So the narrative of the Cowboys is basically, this is the team to beat. They are awesome, and they are going to win the NFC, whereas the narrative of the Jets is their season's over. Like, they got to have Zach Wilson as their quarterback for the rest of the season, and everything is over for the season of the Jets. So how can we exploit these narratives? I think, first of all, like, Dallas is overrated after this win, like hugely overrated. They do have an awesome defense, but they still have Dak as their quarterback. And Dak has a history of not being able to perform in big games or against tough opponents. Like, when he faces tough defenses, the team usually chokes, maybe scores 17 points. But typically, the games that Dallas plays a tough defense, they don't do well in. They need to be facing weak defenses, and their offense puts up tons of points. And that's the environments that the Cowboys like. Just a few examples of recent defenses that Dallas has played. Tampa Bay last year to begin the season, Dallas put up 3 points. Dak played most of that game. He got hurt at some point in that game, ended up being Cooper Rush, but Dallas was only able to put up 3 points in the home opener. I don't know if it was a home opener, but in the opening game of the season last year, they lost 19-3 to Tampa Bay. San Francisco, they played against San Francisco 2 years in a row in the playoffs, got eliminated both times. They lost 23-17 and 19-12. So Dallas unable to put up more than 20 points against the toughest defenses that they've played in the last year or so. And the Jets, the narrative of the Jets, I'm sure that the players on that team are not taking those narratives lightly. I'm sure that they've been extremely motivated by the coaching staff about how everybody is doubting them, how they're against the world, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that the message from Aaron Rodgers, word coming out tonight that he might be able to return for the playoffs after tearing his Achilles. And supposedly he got some sort of advanced treatment. and he has a potential to return for the playoffs. So I'm sure that's going to rally the Jets in this game against the Cowboys. I'm not thinking that the offense is going to come out and light up this Dallas defense. I think it's going to kind of be the opposite. I think that both these teams, both these offenses are going to be controlled by the defenses of the other teams. I do think that in this showdown slate, people are going to be going heavy on these defenses. And knowing the volatility of defenses, like these defenses could play great games, but they could also play great games and still not score a bunch of fantasy points. So I'm going to take an angle that the defenses are able to keep these scores low, but the kickers come in and are the big parts of this game, the story of this game. So we're going to build some lineups based on the kickers being the heroes of this game and not the defenses. So we're going to go over to the DraftKings screen share here. And we're going to take a look at building some lineups. So in the captain position, you know, we could go a couple different ways because I still think that the running backs in this game are going to do pretty well. I think it's going to be a game controlled by the running backs. I think if Dak tries to throw against the Jets, then the Jets defense is just going to dominate him. I think if Zach Wilson tries to throw against the Cowboys, I think they're going to, you know, just destroy him. So I think that the logical way to approach this game, we know Mike McCarthy wants to run the ball this season. So I think that makes a lot of sense on Dallas's part this week against the Jets. I think the Cowboys are going to try to make Zach Wilson beat them. But I think the Jets are going to, you know, still try to run the ball. So I want to kind of build my lineups around around the running backs, the kickers, and the defenses in this particular game. We want a low scoring game. I think it's going to hit under. I think the total is 38. Just double check that. The total of this game is 38.5. The Cowboys are favorites by 8.5. So Cowboys favored by 8.5 seems to me, you know, like a little bit overreaction to last week. I think the Jets are not going to let the Jets defense, I don't think are going to allow that. So let's take a look at this game here. So if we're looking at an under on a 38.5 point game, I'm thinking both these teams, maybe it's like a 15 to 12 game or something like that. Or maybe it's, you know, like somewhere around those lines, like 18 to 12 or something like that. So I think the team that is going to win is still going to be Dallas, but you could build it either way when we're talking about kickers. You could build it either way with either kicker and the captain. But for this sake of this story, let's go with Dallas's kicker and the captain. And right now that is Aubrey here. All right, so we want Aubrey in there. We want the Jets kicker. And it looks like Zerloin is out. So Austin Siebert is going to be replacing him, and I don't see him in here right now. So let's check out the kickers. Yeah, I don't see a Jets kicker, so we might have to just go with a Dallas kicker and yeah, try to build that way. All right, so we got the Dallas kicker. Let's put in these defenses. We want the Jets defense, and we want the Cowboys defense. One thing that I did notice is that the Jets do give up a decent amount of points, at least last year, to the tight end position. And Ferguson got He was the top targeted guy on Dallas last week in that game where the offense wasn't asked to do much. So let's put Ferguson in there, and it's given us a lot of salary left. We got 14,650 per player, and we got 2 spots left on each team. I think I want to have Pollard in there because I think he's just going to be a volume guy. And I think as far as the Jets end, this gives us some options. Now the Cowboys, they have a good secondary. They have a couple studs as cornerbacks. They got Diggs and they got Stephon Gilmore. So those are both very good cornerbacks. Last season, Dallas was weaker against the right side of the field, and that is where Lazard runs most of his routes. So if I was going to plug in a wide receiver in this game, it'd probably be Lazard here. And, that would leave us with like almost 12,000 in salary. If we wanted to, I think Breece Hall makes a lot of sense. I think that Dalvin Cook makes a lot of sense in this script, and we're gonna have to wait and see if that Jets kicker ends up making it into the player pool. But I would put him in there too, as in addition to those dudes, like or like one of those dudes getting in there. But the players that I like the most, like in this build in general for this narrative, is the kicker Aubrey. I like the Jets and Cowboys D. I like Ferguson and I like Pollard. Doesn't really give us like a, it's just if we want to go kicker captain, we only have one option here basically until another dude shows up in the player pool. But I don't know if that's going to happen. This is one of the games that is kind of less important to DraftKings because it's an afternoon showdown slate. So I don't know if they're going to add a kicker into this player pool, but this is the direction that I'm looking at right now. If we wanted to play around with things, I'm avoiding putting one of the defenses in captain just because I think it's going to be overowned. And with defenses, it's just like it's too easy for them not to hit. But I do want them in this build just because we know it's going to be a defensive game, and they are most likely to do the most damage. But you could also put CeeDee Lamb in this lineup. You could go with that one. You're going 5 Cowboys and 1 Jets at that point. If you wanted to put maybe we take out Ferguson and we put in Breece Hall instead of Ferguson. We could do basically whatever we want because we got so many cheap guys in this. But that gives you kind of an idea of guys that you can put in a lineup like this where, I'm projecting it to be something like 15 to 12, 18 to 12, something like that. And I think the majority of those points are going to come off of field goals. So for the Jets side, if the majority of their points is coming off of field goals and we don't have a kicker, like in this player pool, then those points are just going to be evaporated as far as this DraftKings contest. So you want to try to think of a guy who might get some raw points that would be the highest raw points. So in this case where we can't put in 2 kickers, then it makes sense, I think, to use a guy maybe like Lamb gets like 5 receptions for 50 yards or something like that. I think Lamb does have the better matchup in this game, playing in the slot. I think that Diggs did pretty well on the outside last week, but he was also forced a lot of targets, and some of those targets ended up getting intercepted, and ultimately the Bills obviously lost that game. But Diggs still had a decent fantasy performance. So, I mean, you could make a case for Lamb being in this lineup. So I wouldn't put Prescott in. I wouldn't put Wilson in. Zach Wilson. I think you can use Garrett Wilson because I think that with the way that the Cowboys cornerbacks play their defense, if Wilson gets on Diggs at all in this game, and like Diggs is trying to jump the routes and be aggressive, I think one could slip out. We know that Zach Wilson has a good arm. He could potentially hit Garrett Wilson deep, and maybe Diggs misses the route, and Wilson puts up a bunch of points that way on like maybe one play. That's all it would take in a game like this. I think if we're looking for PPR points, I think that Ferguson, like I was talking about, I think he might be the leading receiver in this game. And I think that Pollard is probably going to put up a decent amount of points too, as far as PPR points. From the Jets side, it could be Breece, it could be Dalvin Cook. We've heard that Breece is not going to be used like a ton until his knee is looking better. But like in a matchup like this, if they have the potential to take it over with their defense, you know that they're going to want to, run the ball as much as possible. And that would make a lot of sense for Breece to be used in this game. And, maybe they just want to run Dalvin Cook into the wall throughout the game and just grind out the clock as much as they can and keep Breece healthy. I could see that narrative being played out too. But I think if you want upside with the Jets running back, you want Breece Hall in there, obviously. So you can play around with it. But, that's kind of the narrative that I'm projecting for this game. I think that the Cowboys offense is being overrated, because the defense had a huge game on when they played last week. And I think that the Jets might be a little underrated just based on their offense being run by Zach Wilson right now. But I think that their defense is strong. I think that Dallas's defense is strong too, but I think that they take more risks and they're more vulnerable. And something could slip out in this game, and the Jets could end up, taking another surprise game here against the Cowboys. But I would not be surprised if that happened. But given the circumstances of this game and the weapons that each team has, I think just Dallas has better offensive weapons. And I think that, Dak is enough of a game manager that he could lead them to a victory. I just don't think it's going to hit that total. I think it's going to be way under the total. And I don't think that Dallas is going to win by as much as they're being projected to. So good luck with that. Hopefully that helps you think a different way about building some of these lineups. There's a pretty good contest for this one. 20K to first, the 100K showdown special. It's $10 to enter. So check that out if you want to throw in a lineup and you need a quick build. Maybe this will help you out. So good luck and enjoy the game.